Hello friends, I hope you're well. I am here on this video communicating to you and I have a couple of ideas, I have a couple of thoughts that I'll be sharing with you. Kind of based on those ideas and thoughts, I have a certain news that I will also be sharing with you, and I guess my hope is that as I share these ideas and thoughts and then this news, that you will receive it well, that you will decide to join me on this journey that I will be letting you in on shortly, and it will be this cool moment where we as humans can come together and we can move forward in a certain direction together. So, that being said, the ideas and thoughts are essentially this. We all have personal experience. We all have things that we have went through that have seemed to shape who we are. They kind of dictate the direction we're going or the trajectory of our lives. And every single person has that. And some of these things are good things. They came into our life and they were good relationships. And there were these good, beautiful moments that seemed to just shed this light on our life. And it sent us in a good direction. Some of them were extremely difficult times, and many times it's the difficult times that truly shape you. And you maybe had some hardship or some tragedy that you went through personally that greatly formed your life or the way you think or whatever it may be. And so based on this life experience, we take these things, this collective of different moments, different battles, different victories, we take these things and we move forward in a certain direction, and it kind of forms the way we think and the way we live. And that can be great. That is in itself great. But I think where it becomes a problem and it can lead to maybe difficulties or things that aren't ideal is when our experience becomes the only thing that we know. When our life becomes this kind of figurative posture of being closed off and just being made into just ourselves and only the things that we've been through and only the shoes that we've walked in and only the things that we've seen, and we fail to open ourselves up to the greater good, is what I will call it, and to the greater story of humanity. And I guess what I'm getting at is that I believe humans, I believe me, you, every person you ever met, the guy you met in the street, is that we are all in this together. That my story matters, that your story matters, that your neighbor's story matters. And I don't believe that we were created or intended to live a life where it's just about us. I believe we were created to listen to the story of our neighbor. I believe that we were created to see the perspective of someone else and to take that in, and in many cases let that move you, let that hurt you, let the story, the beautiful story that they share that has good times and it has bad times, let the good times bring you happiness, and let the bad times literally bring you to tears or break your heart or whatever it may be, and let these things influence your life, and let their experience, your friend, your enemy, the guy you just met, let their experience become your experience. And then with that, as a whole, you move forward. And that doesn't mean that you agree with everything that someone else believes, but it means that you listen, and it means that you hear what they have to say. And I believe what that does is it creates this posture of just inclusion, this posture of your arms open, and this posture that every single human matters, that humanity as a whole and this human experience matters, and that you're not just living a life that is selfish and that is only you, but you are taking in all of these things, you are listening to your neighbor, and from there you are moving forward and you are making decisions based on that. So that's kind of the idea or the thought that I have, is that we're all in this together, that your story matters, my story matters, and we ought to listen to those stories and let them influence us and let that experience become our own. So with that, the news that I'm sharing with you is that I have created this personal website. In many ways it will kind of act as a blog that I'll be able to share different thoughts on, different perspectives, some of them being my own, some of them being maybe perspectives I've heard from someone else that have bled into my own, but I'll be sharing those with you. And I believe and I hope that these things that I share, some of them will be lighthearted, some of them maybe a little bit heavier, but I believe that they can move us together in a good direction. You won't love every single thing I post. Some of the things you'll love maybe, some of them you'll hate, some of them might make you think, or maybe they won't, but I believe they can serve a purpose. And so kind of how I've had this broken down, like the topics that I have is, I guess the three main pillars of this website will be lifestyle, culture, and spirituality. And I understand that is the most ambiguous description of topics, because literally anything could fall under one of those three. But I chose those purposefully, and I kind of have a definition for each. So lifestyle is more the individual. And really how I have it defined is the practices, the traditions, the values, or the core beliefs that make up the lifestyle of an individual. How they live, what they do, how they walk, how they make their decisions, and the life that they live. And then from there you have this individual and this lifestyle, and you have many of those, and it creates this collective, which then becomes a culture. And how I have culture defined is the creative expression of a grouping of people. And really, I think this is a beautiful thing, because if all these individuals come together and they create, and this could be anything from art, architecture, paintings, songs. It can be even how a grouping of people interact with others. Are they a kind people? Do they love each other? Do they give to each other? Are they very selfish? What is the culture of a grouping of people? And I'll be discussing those things. And then lastly, and maybe the most controversial, is spirituality. And this is kind of the piece that you don't talk about at work, you don't really talk about to maybe some of your friends, you kind of sweep it under the rug. But I believe it can actually be this beautiful thing. I believe it can be this thing that we're not scared by other people's beliefs, or maybe what they think of when it comes to God or this force or these different beings. But you kind of listen to all of these things, and you share and you learn together. And so how I have spirituality defined is this. It's the awareness of this God, this force, or this being, and the reality that how we as humans respond to that matters. So really the awareness of this God, this force, this being, this higher power, and the reality that how we respond matters. So we'll get into a few different topics with that, but I believe the beauty of it is that this spirituality doesn't just sit on its own. This lifestyle doesn't just sit on its own. This culture doesn't just sit on its own, but the spirituality actually bleeds into the lifestyle. It influences the way people live, many times in bad ways, and many times in good ways. And based on this lifestyle, then creates a culture and expression of all the individuals. And it can be this beautiful thing. And just in closing, one last thing on this whole spirituality is that I believe that this God, right, this God that I believe in, He's a deeply, deeply creative God. The deepest part of Him is an absolute artist, and it's in absolutely everything in the universe, in life, in civilization, in the individual, in the grouping of individuals, that this God is a creative God. And I believe that bleeds into His creation, His art. And then us as humans, I believe we are creative beings, that we were created not just to exist, but to actually somehow form new art, new life, and let that something that did not exist now exist. So I guess with that, I would invite you to join me as I kind of take on different topics: lifestyle, culture, and spirituality. Again, I'll share my perspective. You can take it for what it is. And I believe that we can even move forward in a good direction. And my hopes is that this won't just be something that I share these certain ideas and it just sits there and dies, but maybe certain things will prick your heart, will move you, and then as a group we can move forward in a good direction and loving humans because they are absolutely worth it, and listening to humans and listening to people's stories, and continually expanding ourselves, opening ourselves up, and making people feel that they are welcomed home every single conversation that you have with another human. So thank you. I love you. Again, my name is Chris Stewart. I will provide the link to my website. You can go to it. I've got a few blogs up already. Let me know what you think, and I hope this finds you well. Have a great rest of the evening. I'll talk to you soon.
And I'm free as a child. Oh, awesome, so tempting.